Hello everyone, my name is Margo and welcome back to youtube.com/Margo Kamaya. So in this episode of our book share, one of the books that I'd like to talk about is all about the Japanese occupation in the Philippines during World War II. So we are going to rely on the Japanese occupation, which is Volume 7 of the Kasaysayan books, published by Reader's Digest in 1998. This is part of a 10-volume history chronicling the Philippines, right? So for this particular edition or volume, the main author of this is Professor Ricardo Trota Jose, or Ricardo T. Jose, who is a well-known historian of World War II. Let me just give you some of his credentials. No? So, Ricardo T. Jose holds a PhD in History or Area Studies from the Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. From 1986 to 1990, he undertook special studies in Japanese history and language at the University of Reyes and the University of Tokyo in Okinawa Prefectural Government Scholarship. Right? He was a Japan Foundation Fellow for 1993 to 1994. Right? He published numerous books on Philippine military and cultural history that includes the Philippine Army 1935 to 1942, which was published by Ateneo University Press, and World War II in the Philippines, a pictorial history. So since then, since 1998, he also came out with more books. And recently, during the pandemic, he has also provided a lot of history talks. And I've seen a lot of, or attended a lot of his sessions online, and they are available in Facebook and also in YouTube. Just look for like the World War II Foundation, the Philippine, I think it's the Memorare Manila, also the Filipinas Heritage Library also features an episode of Professor Ricardo Jose. Right. So, basically, when you are a student in the Philippines, World War II was grossly neglected. We don't talk a lot about World War II, and I'm not sure why. There should be a specific area of study dealing with our lives, our history, during the time of the Japanese occupation. It was one of the worst periods in our history, as a Philippine nation. And the Kasaysayan series, there's a lot of books. I'm also going to add links to the other videos that I've featured regarding World War II. There are a lot of books available, and they are very affordable as well, the prices. And if you are interested, get a copy of those books. So the Japanese occupation, for me, it's a very difficult chapter to talk about. So this book, the Kasaysayan volume, it's fairly balanced. It's there's no, for me, I didn't see any biases in terms of how the book was written or presented. And what I like about this, and in other Kasaysayan volumes, are the articles. Aside from the general writing, there are also articles written by other authors, other personalities or celebrities. So there's one by Doreen Fernandez, right? Surviving Off the Land. So she told the story when during the war, no, when the war started, she was like 7 years old, and how they survive, because there was scarcity of food, of resources. And for those who are saying that the Japanese wanted us to be nationalist, that's a double-edged sword, no? The real purpose of Japan when they invaded us was really to steal our resources. We had a lot of mining, metals, wood, right? Or agricultural land. We were number one in sugar plantations or sugar production, but they wanted to remove the sugar because they wanted to plant cotton instead, right? Things like that. Rather than invoking success in the Philippines, right, or promoting what do you call this, independence, or promoting the Philippines, no, as an independent country, what they really wanted was to siphon off our resources and to bring it back to Japan. They really had imperialistic goals at that time. Of course, atrocities in terms of to our civilian, right, population, the comfort women, the prisoners of war. There was less and less production. You've heard about the Mickey Mouse money, wherein one bayong of bag can only buy like a loaf of bread. Imagine a bayong, a big basket of money just for a loaf of bread, So it was really the worst of times. For 3 years, it was a living hell for the Filipinos. Kaya nga there was a movie, diba? 3 taong walang Diyos. I think it starred Christopher De Leon. 3 taong walang Diyos, because from 1942 up to 1945, until we were liberated, it was really hell for the Philippines. Right? After reading this, going through it, I came up with a very heavy heart. Right? Of course, there are talks about who were the collaborators. You had Jorge Vargas, you had Benigno Aquino, Sr., you had even Jose P. Laurel, right? Were they really collaborators? Or were they, they were people were saying they were collaborators because they collaborated with Japan, but the reasoning was that they were given instructions by Manuel Quezon, that if worst comes to worst, you need to save the Filipino people with whatever means that you can, right? So eventually, they weren't prosecuted. They actually, Jorge Vargas became president of the University of the Philippines. Jose P. Laurel continued being what do you call this, involved in politics. Even his sons, Jose B. Laurel Jr. and Salvador Laurel, of course, right? And this is the first time I've learned about it, that there were, well, as per Professor Jose, in this book, there were 2 prominent government officials who the Japanese really targeted, meaning they wanted them to show their allegiance to the Japanese, and to really to kind of collaborate with them. First one was Jose Abad Santos, who was the Chief Justice. And then eventually, when Manuel Quezon left, he became like de facto president, because he was the Supreme Court Justice, or Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But he really did not surrender. He didn't take allegiance to the Japanese flag or to the Japanese emperor. So he was captured in Cebu. He was brought to Mindanao, and he was executed. Until now, his body, or where he was buried, they could not find it. But he became a martyr because of that. So Jose Abad Santos, there's a big statue of Jose Abad Santos in the Supreme Court of the Philippines in Padre Faura. And of course, he is very familiar to us. You can find him on the 1,000 peso bill, no? Together with Josefa Escoda and Vicente Lim, no? Another martyr to the cause. And the second prominent politician that the Japanese really wanted to collaborate with them was Manuel Rojas, who became the third president of the Republic, no? Or of the Third Republic. So Manuel Rojas at the time, he was in, I think, Corregidor or Bataan. He was with Manuel L. Quezon, so he fought. And then when Manuel Quezon left, he asked to be to remain in the Philippines, and then eventually he was captured. I think he was captured, and when the Japanese found out who he was brought to Manila, and then he was asked, no, to join the Japanese sponsored government, and he adamantly said no. So it was I don't know why, how, or what happened, what the other stories are. I would like to find out more, no. But the Japanese left him alone, even after he said na I don't want to cooperate with you. So he wasn't executed because he eventually became president, no. But there's a deeper story behind that. But he was one of those prominent politicians who did not give in to the Japanese. Okay, so of course, another sad story that I found here was written by Lourdes Reyes Montenola, who is the daughter of Nicanor Reyes. Nicanor Reyes is the founder of Far Eastern University, so FEU. So Nicanor Reyes is also the first Filipino to ever receive a doctorate in accountancy in Columbia University. Right. So that's why FEU was known as an accounting school, no? So if you want to be like one of the best accountants, you go study in FEU. So the story of Lourdes Reyes Montenola was already at the latter part of the war. In around January of 1945, February, it was already the Liberation Month. They were able to go back to their house, and they were having dinner when suddenly the Japanese soldiers came and massacred, no, her family. She was the only surviving family member. So Nicanor Reyes, his wife, his two other children, I think an in-law, and like a brother or a sister also died. So Lourdes Reyes Montenola was the only one left, right? Similarly, El Pidio Quirino, right? His wife and I think 2 or 3 other children also died during the liberation of Manila. 100,000 people died during the liberation of Manila, and maybe more. The 100,000 was just a rough estimate. Okay. So this is again something that Filipinos, I know people are saying that it's in the past, we shouldn't talk about it, but how can you define yourself if you don't know what your past is? Okay. So yes, now for me, no, I love Japanese culture. I love, I would like to go to Japan. I love ramen. I love Japanese food. But of course, I don't forget our history. Yes, it was a different chapter, right? Now they've contributed a lot, right? They've given a lot of Japanese aid. They've acknowledged what they have done in World War II, except for the comfort women. So that's a strike in my book to them, no. Until now, they're not like 100% open about what they did to our women. That they forced women as young as 12 into prostitution, no? In short, no? To service their soldiers. So that's one thing that I'm not very happy about them. But again, knowing what your past is, knowing where you came from, how we survive, what happened, it's a very, very important aspect of our history. So just to share with you some of the photos in the book. So I'm also so it's how do you say it? Okay, see, even just talking about it, I got affected. Okay. So it also deals with the role of Emilio Aguinaldo and Artemio Ricarte. Okay, how they were so against the Americans that they also cooperated, or sided with the Japanese. There's a long history about that, ha. You try to look for information or research. I'll try to make another episode wherein we'll talk more about it. So, drop me a comment if you want to learn something about World War II, and I'll help you out. I'll help you out in terms of that. No? Again, there are videos that I've already created sharing other books, that you can read and use for your research about World War II in the Philippines. So, this is volume 7 of Kasaysayan, the history of the Filipino people, the Japanese occupation, right? Written by Ricardo T. Jose. So thank you, everyone. My name is Margo Kamaya. Stay safe. Take care. Bye.